Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really liked it that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not beating the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Stryker. His name's Joe Pisapia, and this is the place for those that want to dominate, whether it be season-long fantasy. We've got you covered. DFS, the same, straight-up wagering. We're here for you. At SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, those are our social media handles. Joey P., the author of the Fantasy Black Book. Come on in. If you always feel like Mean Gene Okerlund, Joey P., come on in. You have a big night against the Junkyard Dog at the Wachovia Center.
We that book right there, Matt Stryker. Yeah, all the way up to number 1. Yeah, it's gonna go all the way to Amazon charts. It's gonna be so good. You can get it right now. Fantasy Black Book 2025. Yeah, it's the greatest book you'll ever read.
How was that? Was that all right?
That was good. I'll let your throat recover. I can't imagine how Randy Savage must have felt. Rest his soul.
Can I ask you a Randy Savage question?
Sure, go right ahead.
I want to interrupt.
Go.
So one of my favorite things about those bits with Mean Gene would be when Randy Savage would basically turn his whole back to the camera. And just, I don't. As a production guy, did that drive you nuts, or did you think that was just the greatest thing ever? Like I can't tell which one it is.
I'll tell you. Originally,
okay.
Randy starts wearing these robes down in Memphis and certain other places, and the camera shot is a lot further back. So he was showing off the robes, and Ric Flair also would spin around. But a lot of the WWF stuff that we saw, the shots are tight on Gene Okerlund. But if you look at them a little later on, I can speak, when they know that it's a Randy Savage interview, they'll either zoom in on the robe and then pull out, or they'll zoom back in. So it didn't really drive me nuts, especially when a guy like Macho Man, who had a lot of regalia. I always wanted to see what some of these guys were. And look, Ole Anderson comes out in a T-shirt, trunks, boots, and athletic socks. I get it. You're a tough guy. But here comes Ric Flair in this flamboyant robe, or Tully Blanchard in this great suit. I wanted to see that as a kid. But that's good stuff. All right, let's transition from our love of wrestling to our love of baseball. For me, it's all the same. It's just it brings me back to being a kid. And I think that's something you can't discount. But we got to be smart. We can't wager like we're kids. We've got to wager like we're quasi-adults. I'm doing air quotes. Let's do some shortstop targets here for the upcoming fantasy baseball draft season. First name is Bobby Witt. Now, here's the thing about Bobby Witt. If you look at the rest of the lineup, you have to ask yourself, is there enough help? I understand Witt in isolation, and he has a lot of people really clamoring for him, but I need you to defend Bobby Witt in a real-world situation. He's going to be great wagering. It's going to be great for DFS. Season-long fantasy, it's just Bobby Witt.
No, Bobby Witt Jr. is my second player off the board. I mean, you got to take Ohtani first because he's Ohtani and he's going to pitch too. But after that, I think it's a no-brainer. If Ohtani wasn't Ohtani, right, he was out of the mix, it would be Bobby Witt number 1 overall for me. We're talking
Because
about
30,
a player.
3,300?
Yeah, is that not good enough? I mean,
No,
3,300
I
is
just
a
wanted to make
shortstop.
sure. Right.
As a shortstop. Look, and there might even be more. There could be a 40-40 version. Look, we listen to Vegas, right? Vegas tells us things. Aaron Judge is the number 1 guy right now on the top of the MVP board in the American League. It's Bobby Witt at plus 270. And then at plus 300, you have Aaron Judge. So for me, I'm looking at Bobby Witt and I'm saying to myself, yeah, like I would take Bobby Witt over Aaron Judge right now. I think the Royals are a team that continue to evolve. I think the adjustments you saw Bobby Witt continue to make as his evolution in the major leagues, a player who's just 24 years old, coming off a season of 125 runs scored, 32 homers, 109 RBI, stole 31 bases. The year before, 97 runs scored, 30 homers, 96 RBI, 49 stolen bases. I mean, the guy hit 330 last year. He could win a batting title and an MVP. He could win a triple crown. That's realistic. All those things are realistic for Bobby Witt Jr. It's why the Royals are having a renaissance. So the show's not long enough for me to go on and on about all the virtues of Bobby Witt. Probably the most valuable dynasty asset that you can have, in my opinion, right now is Bobby Witt Jr. at this age, at 24, as a shortstop. He's the top of the board for me. Ohtani's 1, then it's Bobby Witt at 2.
Let me give you a counterpoint, and here's a scenario I think plays out more often than not this season. Jonathan India grounds out. You pitch around Bobby Witt. Vinny Pasquantino maybe singles or pops up. Then you got Sal Perez and Michael Massey to try to clean up the mess. I think if you can pitch around Bobby Witt, looking at that lineup, if no one else gets hot, that really, really puts a kink in all the Bobby Witt talk. And I'm just here to give some level thought. That's all. All right, let's move on.
Well, here's a question. Question for you. Question for you, though. I want to recounter the counter. How is that any different than last year's lineup? And how'd that go for opposing pitchers?
They didn't have Jonathan India. A few other things here. I think MJ Melendez.
It's not like it lost somebody year over year that was really good. It wasn't all of a sudden, somebody came out of their lineup that wasn't spectacular, is all I'm saying.
Also, though, baseball's a game about adjustments. You think that the rest of the league now doesn't understand. Don't pitch to this guy. Last year, maybe they still fought to challenge him. Well, no.
Look, I think that lineup gets better and better. I think that lineup gets better and better. I think Pasquantino is going to take another step forward here. I like him as a player too.
Okay.
Well, the Royals are, let's be honest, a couple pieces away still, but Bobby Witt is special, and he's got to be the number 1 target here. No, I know. And you bring up you're trying to balance, a little bit, which is important. But again, I keep looking at the same last 2 years, and if you didn't get the message in 2023. And you get the message in 2024. I don't know what the league is waiting for in 2025.
Not listening. Right. All right. Well, then let's try to get the message and listen in on Baltimore's plethora of players. Gunnar Henderson, I checked, though. I think he just left a game yesterday, I believe it was, with some type of injury. 30 home runs, maybe 20 stolen bases, could hit 280. Talk to me about guns.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson, 23 years old. Again, one of the best players in baseball last year, 37 homers, 118 runs scored, 92 RBI, 21 steals, hit 281. The projections for him are still, right around there. The ballpark factor, we mentioned them changing some things in the ballpark again. 97th percentile in hard hit rate. That's pretty good. He is going to be another one of these guys who goes in the middle of drafts, and I would be very happy if you don't get Bobby Witt. Gunnar Henderson is a really nice consolation prize as the 6th pick overall or 7th pick overall, depending on how your draft ends up folding out.
All right, as we continue down the shortstop list, Elly De La Cruz, man. I mean, just first of all, when you look at him as a human being next to the other players, you can really see just the size difference overall. Mm-hmm. He's also coming into his body. He's long. He's got to cut down on the strikeouts. I think Francona can help that. But the stolen bases and the power, it's all there.
Yeah, I think with Elly De La Cruz is the temptation of when does he hit that otherworldly plateau? Because I think you and I agree, as the frame fills out over the next 2 to 3 seasons, Elly De La Cruz could be another 50-50 guy. Like that's what could be in his future. Last year, 25 homers, stole 67 bases, scored 105 runs. Again, the strikeouts can be a problem. He can slump sometimes, but the athleticism off the chart. And then when you go down to the turn, Francisco Lindor is around there too. And I don't think there's any way you could possibly minimize the impact that Juan Soto has in a lineup. And to have Francisco Lindor hitting in front of Juan Soto in that one spot and Soto in the two spot is going to be incredibly impactful. And Lindor already had a good season. If you look at the projections coming up for this year, 28 homers, 23 steals, I think that's light. I really do. I think there's possibly more to be had. Now, sure, the RBI totals are going to hurt a little bit, which makes him, because he's going to hit leadoff there, but last year he still drove in 91 runs. So if the bottom of this Mets order, like Francisco Alvarez starts to hit, you've seen him make major adjustments to his swing. So far, that's been pretty good for him in spring training in terms of contact. I think we're selling Lindor a little short of the projections. I think that there's a chance we look back on this and he outperforms some of the guys that are going after him. He's 31 years old. He's in his prime. Currently, right now, the ninth guy going off in terms of some of these drafts here, somewhere around 9 to even 15. So there's a big range here for Lindor. So if you can get Lindor even later, let's say you get him in the second round, my God, what a huge win that is for your fantasy team. So shortstop at the top, really exciting players. And there's even more exciting ones also to be found later in the draft. When we come back, we'll look at the sleepers at shortstop when we return on FFT.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really liked it that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not beating the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports. Today, Matt and Joe with you here. And of course, Matt and Joe being of a certain age, during the break, we talk about a myriad of things. And during this past break, Joe mentioned how he's been getting the best sleep of his life. No, this is not a commercial for Mattress Firm. Joe, explain a little bit about why you're getting the best sleep of your life.
I mean, it's not a sponsor of the show yet, but we were talking about the
people should hear about it.
We were talking about the electricity in the body, right? We were talking about, and I said I got those grounding sheets where you plug them into your wall, and again, the grounding side of the outlet there. and it's supposed to reset the electromagnetic waves inside your body, which, I mean, you were talking about the electricity inside of our bodies. It just is.
Sure.
Some of us have more electricity than others, as you can tell even on this network. Like Scotty Farrell's electricity off the charts, right?
Schumann
But
resonance
us,
is
a little
just
less.
ding, 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 right?
But it's good for inflammation. It's good for sleep. It's really kind of shuts your body down. It's like recharging your phone. I gotta say, I don't think it's a placebo effect. I think they work. I gotta say, it's really
these are called grounding sheets. These are sheets.
Oh yeah, they're
that
everywhere.
you
And now you've said it like
plug
8 times.
in.
So you're going to see nothing but this on your phone for the next, I don't know, 8 months.
The first time I'm hearing of this, I want people to hear about this. So evidently, it's plugged in, charged ions, and it works with the frequency of your body. Best sleep Joe Pisapia has had in his life, and he's raising 2 daughters, 2 fine young women. So you know this man has many sleepless nights ahead of him. God bless you, Joe. Let's talk shortstops. Hey, listen, I got a little girl too, man. I got sleepless nights, and she's only 3. Bless her heart. Shortstop sleepers. You know, we were talking about Vlad Guerrero's dual position eligibility last week, first base, third base. We really liked that a lot. If you can couple Vlad Guerrero with Bo Bichette, 2 guys that I think are poised for a resurgence on a team that finally has that third bat in Santander. Now, people may argue it was Springer, never panned out. Kirk never panned out. Danny Jansen is somewhere else. There was never that third bat. They have it now. This could be something for the Jays. Talk to us about Bo Bichette as a sleeper on grounded sheets.
Yeah, I gotta go back to bed right now. I mean, it really would be great. Look, he's only 27 years old. I know he had a down year last year. He only played 81 games. It was a very frustrating season because the ADP of Bo Bichette was much higher last year. I get that. But the overreaction of what you're getting right now with Bo Bichette, again, now he's the 131st player coming off the board, I think is too much. Sure, 225 was terrible. The power wasn't there. The speed, nothing was there. It was terrible. I get it. It was bad. He's also playing for a contract this year. He's also hitting cleanup in this lineup, and this lineup also added Anthony Santander to it. So now you got Santander, you've got Vlad Guerrero, you've got Bichette. That's a very formidable top of the order, and then you've got Springer in this mix as well. You added Jimenez to this lineup too. Yep. The East, as we're going to get to them in this hour, it's very interesting this year. I mean, it's very competitive. You can make a case for anybody to win that division, I think, realistically, even though the Yankees are going to be the clear favorite. And Bo Bichette, I think, can bounce back into that 20-10 kind of range. And I think that is the floor for him. So the overreaction to what people saw last year, I think, is just too much. So at the end of the day, Bo Bichette's a player, once again, to buy back in on. You've seen him have multiple 20 home run seasons. I know we're still chasing that 2021 where he had 29 homers and 102 RBI. I get that. Then 2022, 24, 93. And then 2023 was a bit of a drop-off. Again, some injuries there. Missed some time. Only played 135 games. But health is the most important thing for Bo Bichette. So as you continue to watch Bo Bichette, you're just looking for health in spring training. Productivity good, health more important. And then put him in that lineup with all those dudes around him. And I think Bo Bichette is a really good investment shortstop this year. I'm buying in, and a player that I never typically bought into. But again, the price is right in 2025 on Bo Bichette.
I agree. I always liked Bo Bichette. Liked him last year, too. It was just a bit of a down year. That's why I think he is poised for a bounce back. All right, let's go to the Colorado Rockies. When you look at them from a fantasy and a wagering perspective, you're always looking at the park factor. Michael Toglia is going to be interesting. They add Thairo Estrada. But Ezequiel Tovar really emerged last year. So maybe 20-10, kind of 20 home runs, 10 stolen bases, gives you a lot of doubles, just gives you a lot. The team itself, they have no pitching whatsoever. You, me, and Sam can go out there as their 1, 2, 3 and do better. I'm kidding. Talk to me about Ezequiel Tovar.
I don't know. Sam's still working out, so he might still take you up on that. I'm very proud of us because last year one of our breakout players was Ezequiel Tovar, and he did just that. He absolutely broke out last year. So year over year, he went from 15 home runs to 26 home runs, jumped up the run scored, jumped up the RBI total. Now the stolen bases did move backwards a little bit, but that's okay. The batting average uptick too from 253 to 269. Tovar's another one of these good workers, right? He's only 23 years old. So there's plenty of levels left in Ezequiel Tovar's game to reach. And Brenton Doyle had a breakout last year. You mentioned Toglia. You mentioned, some of this pieces of these lineups starting to get a little bit better for the Colorado Rockies. So there's a world here where Tovar has a 30 home run season in him. And I think he is still one of these players that is undervalued, underappreciated at the shortstop spot. He's not as flashy as the guys at the very top of this board, but this top of the shortstop board is extremely flashy, and I get it. But Tovar should not be a guy that you dismiss in that mix. And if you miss out on those shortstop runs, I think a decent consolation prize who might even have another plateau in him in 2025.
All right, I like it a lot. Let's move on to the St. Louis Cardinals. My team, my favorite team since when I was a kid, and I saw Ozzie Smith do backflips out to shortstop. Imagine a kid living in Queens in Mets country rooting for the Cardinals. It was not easy. That's why I look like this. But the top of the order for the Cardinals was Vince Coleman. It was these speedy guys. Now we have Mason Wynn at the top of the order projected to have 14 home runs, 16 stolen bases. Joe, I think there's 20/20 in this kid. I really do, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, Matt used to get a perm like Tommy Herr and bleach blonde it and then go out there to Queens. It was quite a sight. Look, at 171, you're looking for a solid middle infielder at the shortstop position, right? Mason Wynn can be that guy. 11 steals last year, 15 homers, a 268 batting average. He's going to hit to the top of this order here. 85 runs scored last year, so the RBI total will suffer a little bit, but he's still a 4-category player, and I think a player also at 22 that you can make a case for is going to have some more, I think, upside going into this season. And then one more guy, too, that should not be dismissed, Jeremy Pena, who's going right around that same range, 179 overall. Last year, 15 homers. Basically, he's a 15-homer, 75-75 guy with 20 steal potential. So in a lot of ways, Jeremy Pena might be the most underrated, most undervalued shortstop, because if you just strip everything else away and look at the numbers, man, Jeremy Pena, a lot better than people realize. When we come back, who might be the bust at shortstop? We'll tell you after this.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. But I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Remember, folks, there's many different ways to find relief. Some things don't work for everybody, so always try and find what works for you. We're going to the shortstop busts here, and the reason I say that is because sometimes we look at a lot of these names and we say, oh, yeah, that guy. And then we find ourselves with such pain throughout the season. So I'm telling you, there's ways to find relief. Let's talk about some of these shortstop busts to avoid the pain here. Joe, let's go to San Diego. You have a very interesting player here, has dual position eligibility, shortstop and second base. Talk to me about why you believe this particular player is a bust.
All right. Well, Xander Bogaerts at this stage in his career, still a good player, 32 years old, will be turning 33. He'll qualify at second and short. So the eligibility is valuable because guys are going to get hurt throughout the season for you, and you're going to have to make moves and shift guys around. It's just the nature of the beast in Major League Baseball. Last year, in a disappointing season, 111 games, so he spent some time injured, only 11 home runs, 13 steals, 264. The batting average has declined 3 straight years. That to me is a little bit of a red flag. The power department still kind of in that same middling range. And I guess my point with Bogaerts is if you're looking at the ADP and where he's going, right? He's going currently at, around 142 overall. Tovar is cheaper at 144. Mason Wynn at 171 is cheaper, and Jeremy Pena at 179. I think I'd rather wait than try to invest in Xander Bogaerts and wait another round or two and try to pick up one of those other guys, because I just think it's an easier investment. I'd rather be hitting some of those pitchers around that time. So again, it's not that Xander Bogaerts isn't useful. It's not that he's not a good player anymore. There's some earmarks of decline that I think you have to be aware of. There's some health issues there too. And I think at the same time, you start to look at some of the value you're getting out of him versus the value you're getting out of some of the players a little later. And at the end of the day, if I showed you the projections for Xander Bogaerts and the projections for Mason Wynn, how different are they? And at this stage, is Mason Wynn going to give me a better batting average? Maybe. Jeremy Pena, at a certain point, I think would give you more power, certainly going to give you more steals. So if Jeremy Pena is a 2020 guy from last year, right, who do you think has a better chance of being 2020 this year? Xander Bogaerts or Jeremy Pena? I think it's Pena, and Pena's cheap. Right. You think the same thing, right? So why would anyone take Bogaerts when you could just take Pena 2 rounds later? I think that's my argument. Does that make sense to you about, why Xander might be a guy to pivot? Is Xander a pivot guy for you, or do you think there's like a renaissance season for him?
No. I'm with you on this. And what I like what we do is we have these conversations, because think about it from when you're going to draft. Out there, you're listening, you're watching, you have a draft coming up. You're going to remember these conversations because you're going to find, Xander Bogaerts or this next guy on this list that we're going to talk about. You're going to chase something. But to Joe's point, you can get it cheaper and sometimes better. And also a lot of times, Joe, we can piece it together. A lot of times we can create Mike Trout if we have to at a much lower ADP. It's a bad example because Trout's ADP has plummeted since his heyday, but I'm just using it as an example. This next guy here that I want to talk to you about, I did a draft yesterday, and I was at a point where I just went to the stat cat. It was a Yahoo draft for projected points. And I find that a lot of times the players that we target based off of the league's parameters, they line up with the projected points almost all the time. Bryson Stott was right there as a projected point leader at shortstop, but you think it's because of the inflated ADP about the stolen bases. Talk to me.
Yeah, you remember the conversation we had in the first hour about Bryce Turang? It's the same one I want to have about Bryson Stott. Now, Stott plays on a high-profile team, a winning team, just like Turang does. Had a decent postseason, right? Had some moments in the postseason. But Bryson Stott, last year stole 32 bases. He only hit 11 home runs. So he's basically there for the steals. And I think that at this day and age where we are in Major League Baseball, I can find more productive players. Again, I'm going to go to Jeremy Pena, right? He can give me 20 stolen bases and 20 homers. Bryson Stott's not giving me 20 homers. He's just not going to do it. And if Bryson Stott's stolen bases should regress at all, like you look at the projections, right? Last year, 32. This year, projected at 26. So if they take any sort of step backwards, then what happens, right? Then we'll have a player who doesn't drive in a lot of runs, a player who doesn't hit a lot of home runs, a player that didn't score a lot of runs last year. He was basically there to give you some position flexibility because he qualifies at the 2 middle infield spots and give you stolen bases. So Turang, Stott, in head-to-head roto leagues, I get it because you value that speed, but it's just so much easier to find 25, 30 stolen base guys than it was just a few years ago. I would be coveting power instead. So that's why Bryson Stott to me is a player that as you go deeper in shortstop, people might look at that player. And I think, once again, I'd rather pivot to more of an all-around talent. Wynn, Pena, going after him, I think are far better investments. When we come back, we're going to begin our previews of the American League East. Last week, we did the National League East. If you missed it, the American League East, possibly even more competitive. My goodness, don't miss this. We'll be right back.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally, come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports. Today, Matt Stryker and Joe Pisapia giving you everything you need in order to dominate. It is now time for the preview portion of our show. We're going to head to the American League East. Our producer, Sam Y, the sports guy, got in my ear right before we came on. He said, the Yankees. And I'm wondering, is that a universal thing? Does everyone know, is John Sterling, right? The call, the Yankees win, the Yankees win. Now, I remember one time he got so excited, he pulled his cord out. It was the Yankees win the and my friends and I, it took us maybe 2 seconds to realize what was going on at the time. But overall, I was wondering if that's something regional or if the entire world knows the joy of that.
I think it's become more well known. Although I was a little worried there when you said he took his cord out. I thought he might have to go to HR. I didn't know where that story was going, so I wasn't sure. But John Sterling no longer going to be calling the games now too, so we don't have that call to look forward to. Or if you don't like it, I forgot from the Mariners. Oh my goodness, his name went out of my head. He's replacing him this year. Wonderful announcer, coming back over from Seattle. He was originally a New York guy. Who is it, Matt Stryker? Sam Yarnell, help me with this. That's going to drive me crazy.
We can look it up while we go into this
talk about the
Yankees
Yankees
conversation. All right, so talking about the lineup here, they'll have Jazz Chisholm at the top, Judge hitting 2. Then they brought in Bellinger. Stanton's hurt. Goldschmidt is there as well. Jason Dominguez we'll get to see, and we'll see. I think Peraza should play as well. But I want to start with the staff because Luis Gil is now going for some MRIs. That means Marcus Stroman will be there. Cole, Fried, and Rodon are your 1, 2, 3. Do you love that?
There's a lot of things with the Yankees here where I feel like everyone's putting their heads in the sand on some stuff. By the way, Dave Sims, thank you. Sam Yarnell is going to try. Dave Sims, OG New York radio guy. Then he went to Seattle. Love Dave Sims. He's going to be a tremendous announcer. You're very lucky, Yankee fan. But luck, I think, has a lot to do with the Yankees' success this year and staying healthy. Gil was already a player that I was fading away from. I do all the pitcher write-ups in the Fantasy Baseball Black Book, and Gil was one of my red flag pitchers. Why? Because the xERA, the xFIP, all those underlying numbers were all worse than the ERA, and that's usually a red flag. Plus, you mentioned the innings jump year over year, too, that being a problem. Max Fried is a pitcher that's had some issues. And I feel like I'm going to be very doom and gloom here on the Yankees, but if you start to look through, you could find a real negative narrative on a lot of things here, not just with the rotation too. I like Carlos Rodon. I think he's going at a really reasonable ADP, cheap enough that you take his injury history and you say, okay, I can live with this ADP. I think it's baked into it, so I'm fine there. Garrett Cole seems to be okay. Everything seems to be wheels up. Will he be the same pitcher he was as dominant? I don't know. None of us know, and I'm not betting to find out. So I'm not somebody who's taking pitching that early in drafts anyway. And then you pivot to the lineup here. Chisholm had a great year. It was great to get him out of that environment of Miami, drop him in New York. Judge, great. I believe in Bellinger. The first three I'm very much in on. After that is where things get a little wonky. You've got Stanton already dealing with an injury. What else is new? Stop me if you heard that one before. You've got Goldschmidt, a player on a steep decline. Can Yankee Stadium save him? Maybe. Or is he just the next Rizzo? Volpe, a player we keep waiting for to find consistency and consistent contact. He strikes out too much. He doesn't make enough contact. That's troubling. Dominguez, we'll see what he is. So there's question marks there. And then Cabrera at third base. I mean, look, the Devin Williams acquisition was great. Bellinger acquisition was great. Jazz getting there. There's a lot of things the Yankees have done well organizationally the last year and change. But to think that the Yankees are unbeatable in this division, I think, is a huge folly because there's lots of negatives and things that could go wrong for this team. What do you see the Yankees at right now? If you're looking at the win total, I'm going to throw this one out at you because I know I have it here. The win total for the New York Yankees is 93.5. You're going to go over or under that?
Is Sandy Alcantara a Yankee by the All-Star break? Because that's going to determine my answer. Here's the thing.
Historically speaking, no. Because you know why? Because Cashman doesn't seem to want to move those prospects. He doesn't seem to have that desire to do it.
Is Spencer Jones playing at all?
I watched Spencer Jones play in person a couple times last year, and I got to say I was not impressed.
I ask you. Okay, so 93 is tough because you mentioned if you just move around a little bit, you can really see some holes in this team. But I think if the entire pitching staff takes the step forward, you expect Cole to take the step back. The bullpen is going to matter. Booney can manage this team to play 6 and 7 inning baseball and then turn it over to the pen. So 93 is a big number. It really is. It's a stay away from me. But if guys like Bellinger and Goldschmidt do their thing, it's certainly attainable. But like I said, it's going to need that one other intangible, which we don't know. Let's go to the Boston Red Sox here right now. They have some issues with Rafi Devers and where he's going to play. I've been seeing that Yoshida is slated to DH, but Devers says that he wants to play third base. But now they have Alex Bregman. But talk about this pitching staff, because to me, this is a deep, deep staff. Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler, Lucas Giolito, and then Brian Bayo. And that's not even considering Cutter Crawford, as well as the kids that are coming.
For the record, I'm on the under on the 93.5 on the Yankees because this is what it looks like before injuries happen. And injuries are going to happen. With the Red Sox, you're right. The rotation is really intriguing. Garrett Crochet could be a huge difference maker. He could be the best pitcher in this whole division when all said and done. And that includes Garrett Cole. I'm just saying this year. I'm not saying historically. I'm just saying this year. Houck had a nice season. Walker Buehler, if you can get the Walker Buehler you saw in the NLCS and in the World Series, that's a Walker Buehler that I'd like to have. Giolito, we'll see what we get out of him. Brian Bayo, I think, being the fifth starter, takes a lot of pressure off of him. The bullpen was smart to go after Aroldis Chapman to give yourself a secondary guy just in case Liam Hendricks isn't ready, but so far so good with Liam Hendricks. And then you look at this lineup, Duran having a career year, breakout season last year. You hope that Devers can put the ego aside and eventually move to DH, because if he does, you have Costas at first, Bregman at third, and then all of a sudden you would be able to put Christian Campbell at second base, lengthen this lineup. Yoshida's a guy that you could trade. There's a lot of teams that would like Yoshida. He's a nice player, but he's not a game-changing player. You also have Trevor Story, who never plays. So the downside with the Red Sox is the bottom half. Like the first four guys, you feel good about. You feel good about the top of this rotation with 1, 2, and Crochet and Houck. After that, it's what do you get out of Story? What do you get out of Abreu? Is Rafaela, start to make some strides and some improvements year over year? So when you look at the Red Sox, not a perfect picture, but a team that's got 85.5 wins is the total, right? Like that seems kind of right to me. You could see it going down to maybe a 500 team, but you could also see it getting to a 90-win team too, especially with Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell looming. That's the thing. The Red Sox are in a position where they have, and Marcelo Mayer too. The Red Sox are in an interesting spot because the Red Sox do have, I think, the ability to go get a Sandy Alcantara. And if they do, man, that would be a game changer in this division.
All right, continuing to motor through the American League East, we go to the Baltimore Orioles. Many people feel they've taken a step back on the pitching staff. Joe seemingly jokingly said they're in a rebuild here. I think this bullpen is really where it's at. If you look at that bullpen roster, like I've said, it's every guy that you've ever chased for saves in the last 3 seasons of fantasy baseball. Gregory Sotos or Anthony Dominguez, Bautista, I mean, just on and on it goes. There's another team that could play 6-7 inning baseball and then turn it over to the pen. Your thoughts, Joe?
My thoughts are bullpen's really good. They better be, because this rotation, I think, is underwhelming. I love Grayson Rodriguez. I do think he becomes the ace of this rotation. Zach Eflin, I mean, you let Corbin Burns go, and you're giving me Zach Eflin as your opening day starter. That's not exciting. Charlie Morton is almost as old as Matt and myself. That's not great. Kramer, okay. Sagano, we don't know what we're going to get out of him. The lineup is terrific, and you've got more coming here. So Gunnar Henderson is a brilliant player. Westberg, again, does Kobe Mayo start to push him? Colton Cowser in right field, does he start to get pushed by Heston Kjerstad? It's very possible. So the opening day Orioles roster might look very different from the, I would say, July 1st roster, and maybe different than the September 1st roster. So this is a team where if Jackson Holiday hits and hits early, I think you're going to see him moved up to the top of that lineup. That would be really huge for them. What the Orioles need is for Mayo, Holiday, and Kjerstad to all show up in 2025, kick ass, and chew bubble gum, and hopefully they're all out of bubble gum. That's what we need. When we come back here, we continue on with the American League East preview. We're going to talk about the Rays and also a plucky Toronto team that could surprise you.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really liked it that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today, and in true form, I will bring forward conversations that we have during the break because everyone loves when I do that. My producer Sam Yarnell just called me both mature and smart. Now I'll give you mature. I got gray in the beard and gray in the temple, but my friends, if you ever want to test someone, ask them a simple question. Say, do you think you're smart? And watch their answer. If you ask me, I say, no. I'd much rather have wisdom, and I think that's the word that Sam used, but I don't fancy myself as smart. None of us should, with the exception of one man and one man only. Joseph Michael Pizzapia right over here, the smartest guy I know. And I'll tell them you're smart. You don't have to tell them. We're continuing an American League East preview. Let's do the smart talk on the Toronto Blue Jays. They finally add that third bat that we have always coveted. Every team needs three. They have Guerrero and Bichette, both in contract years. Now here comes Santander. You don't know what you're going to get out of Will Wagner. Anything you get there is just going to be a gift. Andres Gimenez at the bottom of the order provides more opportunity to turn the lineup over. Joe, Hoffman's their closer now. Romano goes to Philadelphia. Talk to me about this team.
Yeah, I think the Jays are in an interesting spot. I love the Santander signing. You bring in some real thump to this lineup here. You put Bo Bichette in the fourth spot now. So now you've got Springer, Guerrero, Santander, all ahead of Bo Bichette. There's even some rumors that Jimenez could move up to that one spot and bump everybody down. Maybe. We'll keep an eye on that. But like some of the other teams in this division we've already gone through, the second half of this lineup is a little questionable, right? Are you going to get another good season out of Will Wagner at DH? Maybe. We'll see what Jimenez brings you. Clement and Lukes, I think, are, works in progress there. So the Blue Jays are kind of in a weird spot because outside of Bichette, if you go back and look historically, like Kevin Biggio didn't work out. Some of the other prospects that they had coming through there, Spencer Horwitz, they traded, right? So the pieces they were looking to kind of fill the rest of this lineup in really just never developed. So they had to go out there on the market and make a move. And they've been trying. I mean, to Toronto's credit, they tried to be in on the Ohtani sweepstakes. They tried to be in, obviously, on, the Juan Soto sweepstakes. They're trying to be in, just nobody wants to go up there because they take such a huge hit potential. Right, the taxes and the issue, you got to pay, you got to pay the Canadian taxes and the American taxes. So it's tough. I get that. But at the same time, I wouldn't discount the Toronto Blue Jays. I think this is a team that's going to cover a lot of games because I think the pitching is pretty decent. You look at Kevin Gausman on a bounce back. I think it's very potentially there. You're getting him very cheap, a guy who always going to give you strikeouts. Jose Barrios is your prototypical, I feel like, league average guy where he's going to give you 10 starts that are really good, 10 starts that are middle of the road, and 10 starts where you just want to cry. Cry yourself to sleep. But, he's given it. Last year was the most consistent year for Barrios, so I want to give him some credit there because he did find a little bit more consistency. But his MO has always been this yo-yo effect of being up and down and up and down. And it's very frustrating as a fantasy manager in any sort of head-to-head format, and that's where I like to play my fantasy baseball. So it's frustrating because you don't know when to start him, when not to start him. He found a little bit more consistency last year, so I do want to pop him for that. But at the same time, history tells us it's not always the case. Chris Bassett, decent guy in there, middle of the road starter too. He'll give you some innings, so that's what Chris Bassett's useful for. Bowden Francis, I'm very excited about. Francis was terrific last year. The question is, can he push the innings now? And I think the answer is yes. Bowden Francis could end up being, maybe one of the more impactful starters in this entire division. And then it's a question of how many starts you get from Max Scherzer. I will set the number at 17.5. Over under for Max Scherzer starts. What do you think?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I think he bounces back. Let's go over.
All right. Look at that. The old guys getting the benefit of the doubt. So Toronto, a team that's going to cover, a team that I think can be really good. You got two guys playing for money with Bichette and Guerrero. I always love when that's going on. The Toronto game total, 78.5, Matt Striker. Thoughts?
I've got to go over. I'm really excited, and everything we're talking about implies that this team pushes over. They're better than a 500 team. Absolutely. Are you ready to move on to Tampa Bay?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So, you talked about how the Jays had prospects that didn't work out. Well, one of them is actually in Tampa now, hitting fifth and catching. It's going to be Danny Jansen. Yandy Diaz, another guy I target. I know you want to talk about Junior Caminero. Chris Morel comes over from Chicago. And don't forget, I think Eloy Jimenez is on this team as well. A lot of people forget Eloy Jimenez now here. I think Yohan Moncada's in Los Angeles. But it's this pitching staff, dude. I mean, they can really show you. I just called you dude. They can show you six straight away. Fairbanks is the closer. And the biggest thing that I'll let you talk about even more is the change of venue.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge impact because historically speaking, Tampa is a great place for starting pitchers, right? The batter's eye isn't great. It's a very pitcher-friendly environment. We've seen that time and time again. Now they're going to be outside in that Steinbrenner Field playing games. There's going to be humidity. There's going to be rain delays. It's Florida. It rains every 5 seconds there. It's it's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts Shea McClanahan. Taj Bradley's still got potential here. Pepio had some nice strides last year. Littell is out of options, so he might be kind of the fly in the ointment of this rotation. Shane Boz and Rasmussen, I would rather be starting than Littell, but from, got to keep it real. The Rays are going to Ray. From a fiscal standpoint, they're probably going to have Littell in this rotation, which means either Rasmussen goes to the bullpen or Boz goes back to the minor leagues. I don't know. Probably more likely Rasmussen goes to the bullpen, at least for now. Fairbanks is a good value at closer, but this lineup here, again, it's a little underwhelming. I do like the fact, though, they are getting out of that environment, which brings us to, I think, the breakout of this division, which is Junior Caminero. Junior Caminero has elite level minor league stats. Junior Caminero, I think, is going to be the breakout of this division, and I think he is a guy that when we circle back to 2026 drafts in the ADP, he is going to be a guy going probably in the second round. Now, that's a huge value when you consider where he's going currently. So if you miss out on the elite third baseman, we talked about it last week. You can go back and watch last week's show. But Caminero, Vientos, those are the two guys to target that position in terms of value. I love Caminero's upside. And then the sleeper for this division is Jackson Holliday. Why? I mean, ironically, he's still a big name. But again, going outside the top 200 players for a guy that's supposed to be the can't miss number one prospect in baseball, well, I'll buy back in. And I like the adjustments he's made. I think he needed to make those adjustments. I don't know if Jackson Holliday is a 30 home run guy, but I think he can get to 15 to 20 easily this season. He's got some speed. He's always hit for batting average his entire career. So just give the kid a break. He's only 21 years old. Post hype is a great time to be buying in on huge talents. And Jackson Holliday is just that. All right, we're not done yet. We've still got a little bit to go. So we come back to 3 and Out on FSD.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not beating the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shea's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FSD Fantasy Sports today, where Deebo Samuels is now a Washington Commander, John Cena is a bad guy, and Matt Stryker, Joe Pisapia, and Sam Y, the sports guy, have held it down once again. Knock wood, thank you. Another show in the books, but not before we do what I'm calling 3 up and 3 down. I don't care what anyone says. It's baseball. Joe says that means we have to do 6 things. I don't think anyone's thinking about it that much. But here's 3 things, just 3 things, which we're looking forward to.
But we have a 3 up and 3 down segment we've done on this show since inception. In season, the players who are going well and the players who aren't going well. I just want to call it 3 and out. I just want to go back to
3
bed.
and out, but 3 and out's a football thing. It's a football thing, though.
But we talked football today. You just mentioned Deebo Samuel in this thing.
I don't know.
3 strikes, you're out. Is that a compromise?
The 3 strikes. The 3 strikes. Bottom of the order. Top of the order.
Bottom of the order. 3 strikes.
Anyway, before we get there, folks that are listening and watching, these are 3 things to look forward to this upcoming week ahead of the open of Major League Baseball, Joe.
All right, the Freddie Freeman ramp up. We kind of touched on it at the top of the show, but I want to remind everybody, keep an eye out. He might be playing the field on Tuesday, coming back from a few different injuries there. Freddie Freeman is a tough guy, man. I love Freddie Freeman. I'm rooting for Freddie Freeman. I know a lot of people hate the Dodgers, but I know why you hate the Dodgers, but I can't hate the Dodger players. I love Shohei Ohtani. He's the greatest baseball player we're ever going to see in the history of baseball. Freddie Freeman is about the nicest human being on the planet in the game. And Mookie Betts, if you don't love Mookie Betts, like something's wrong with you. Like, and that guy's like, what do you need me to do? Oh, I'll go play second base. I'll go play shortstop. I'll go catch. Like, I'll do anything just to help the team win. And he doesn't have to do that because he's getting paid a ton of money. Rafael Devers, I'm looking at you. Take a look at Mookie Betts. Take a look at Rafael Devers and why the Dodgers are where the Dodgers are going to be and where the Red Sox might be where the Red Sox are at the end of the day. Put your ego aside. All right, I'm done. Let's talk about Gunnar Henderson. You mentioned his injury. Matt, I don't know if you have any updates on the Gunnar Henderson situation, but certainly one to keep an eye on here, as spring training is always fraught with injuries all over the place. Are you getting antsy at all about the Gunnar Henderson situation?
It depends on the injury, and I'd have to do more research. But anything that involves the hand, the wrist, and a lot of times the foot. I'm always looking at those things. Baseball is a timing thing. I know the oblique is the trendy injury, but I would do a little more research and see exactly what the injury is.
Well, it's a side, and the team, so side means oblique, just for everybody. Yes. They're going to give him a week of rest and then an MRI. That's what they're doing. So
cool.
We'll see.
I'll take that.
See how it goes. There you go. You want an MRI or just the week of rest? Which one? Or both?
Both. I'll take them both, please.
Nice.
All right,
Matt
what's
loves
last?
a good MRI on Tuesday afternoon. Last one is the bullpen battles. There's not too many of them. Kyle Finnegan actually just signed with the Nats, so Sammy Arnell is rejoicing because now his closer's back there. But it feels like most of the jobs are kind of set. I want to keep an eye on Liam Hendricks. I want to keep an eye on that Royals bullpen situation too, how that shakes out. You think it's Whitlock, really? So you think Whitlock goes over Chapman?
No. If Hendricks and Chapman falter, Whitlock is the safety net. And he's also a swingman, too, who can give some relief. But, I think that – listen, I love Liam Hendricks. I do. And his story is great. I'm not confident that he's going to carry the entire season. Then Aroldis Chapman is very, very volatile.
One other note, too, I want to get to because it just came through yesterday. Last week on the show, we talked about Spencer Steer being a bust potentially, right, for a bunch of different reasons. He could open the season on the IL. That just came through recently, too. He got a cortisone shot in the shoulder. But if he starts the season on the IL, again, we're talking about wheels up for guys like Matt McClain. You're going to talk about Noel Marte. You're going to be talking about all these guys who might be fighting for time, maybe even Christian Encarnacion-Strand to get more time. So that's a really interesting one to keep an eye on. Shane McClanahan, 3 hits, 2 scoreless innings. Everybody was looking at that against the Mets on the spring debut Saturday. Good to see Shane McClanahan on that mound. He's had a long time to recover. McClanahan and Alcantara are 2 guys going woefully late right now. I think in 3 weeks from now, you're going to see a much different ADP for those guys as they look healthy in spring and look good in spring. Jacob deGrom also is going to make his debut on Friday. Matt Stryker, are you excited about Jacob deGrom taking the mound?
Excited might not be the word. I'm intrigued. I'm looking at Jacob deGrom now, and I could be wrong, as like an SP2. And if he can give me, he asked me what 17.5 was Scherzer's over-under, and I said Scherzer bounced back. If deGrom can give me 20 starts, I'm happy. If deGrom can give me 15
I was going to set the number at 21.5. That's 21.5 was my number there.
There you go.
We'll see. Yeah, it's time to start turning some of these previews into some wagers. And we're going to keep doing that over the weeks ahead. We have a great team here at obviously at SportsGrid, and make sure you stay on the grid for more incredible programming. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Matt Stryker, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy your Sunday.